Hey guys, so I'm getting a lot of questions about how to make a Google Doc. This seems to be a struggle, or how I want their answers on there. So I'm going to guide you through that really quickly and then get started on day 17. So if you go to Redbird portal, you click on Google Drive, it will take you to this page where you have all your work saved. You're going to click New. It will come. My internet's been super slow. I think because everyone's like using it now because everyone's at home. Okay, let me wait. There we go. New Google Docs. So then this blank Google Doc is going to come up. And I'm going to title the Google Doc the day of the assignment and the name of the assignment. So up here where it says Untitled Document, if you click up there, you can highlight and rename it. Okay, so I'm going to say day 17. Was it selective reading? This is hard to do. Okay, sorry, my computer's like sliding because I'm doing it on my lap. Okay. And then if you want to put the title again here, you can, or write your name, you can, or you just get started with leaving number 1 ready to go. Okay. Let's go to 7th Science Google Doc. We're on day 17, Wednesday, April 8th. Click the article. Sometimes you get this. So you come over here and you click open in a new window. Okay, and I'm going to read this through with you and then we'll answer the questions, or I will guide you. All right. Charles Darwin, a British naturalist who lived in the 19th century, is best known for his book On the Origin of Species. In it, Darwin established the idea of evolution that is widely accepted today. He proposed that all species alive have evolved through adaptation to their surroundings. Natural selection, the process by which varied traits that increase the survival and enable reproduction are passed down from generation to generation, is probably the most famous principle from the book. Darwin's book also addresses the perhaps less well-known concept of artificial selection. Today, artificial selection is more often called selective breeding. Selective breeding involves breeding animals or plants for a specific, typically a desirable trait. By doing so, the desired genes from the plant or animal will be passed on to its offspring. Dog breeding is one of the most common examples of artificial selection. You need only to tune in to a dog show on TV to see the power of selective breeding at work. Crossbreeds, for example, are dogs born from parents of 2 different breeds. Mixed breeds are born from parents of more than 2 breeds, and purebreds are born from a single breed. All 3 varieties are featured in most dog shows. Many of these dogs were bred to achieve certain desirable physical or behavioral traits. Beyond the context of dog shows, dogs are particularly interesting example of selective breeding. After all, we call dogs man's best friend for a reason. Dogs originally evolved from wolves. Eventually, humans were breeding different types of dogs to accomplish certain jobs. For example, some dogs were bred to hunt well. Others were bred with desirable traits to herd cattle. But it was a trait known as tameability, or a dog's ability to be tamed and live among people, that resulted in humans keeping dogs as pets. Now that many people live relatively quiet, domestic lives, how well a dog can herd sheep is not a huge importance. What matters most is whether a dog makes a good companion. Charles Darwin may have been the first to describe the process of selective breeding, but the practice may be more than 2,000 years old. The Romans are said to have practiced selective breeding among their livestock, favoring cows that produced a lot of milk. But it wasn't until the 18th century that farmers began practicing it on a large industrial scale. Today, farmers breed chickens to have extra large breasts and to lay a lot of eggs. A wild foal, a chicken that lives in the woods, lays between 20 and 30 eggs per year. In contrast, a chicken born out of selective breeding can lay as many as 300 eggs per year. In the same way that chickens are selectively bred for having more meat and laying a greater amount of eggs compared to wild chickens, cattle are often selectively bred either for more meat or for more abundant milk production compared to cattle in the wild. Over the course of the 1700s, the size of bulls sold for slaughter increased dramatically from around 300 pounds to nearly 800 pounds as a result of selective breeding. Also, as a result of selective breeding, the dairy cow, which does not display a lot of girth or muscle, can produce enough milk for 10 calves. One can identify a dairy cow by its udders, which can hold over 5 gallons of milk. Even though people selectively breed to yield animals with desired traits, there are dangers to selective breeding. Temple Grandin, an animal welfare advocate, notes that breeding animals for size and strength interferes with natural animal processes. Breeding roosters for muscle, for example, can make them top-heavy and unsteady on their feet, interfering with their courtship dances. This, in turn, can alienate them from hens. Sorry, I must be tired. Okay, speaking of hens, what about those that were bred to lay 300 eggs per year? Laying 1 egg a day makes a hen's bones brittle, since the eggs soak up the bird's calcium supply. And what about so-called broiler chickens, the ones that are bred for their large breasts? Often their bodies grow so fast that their skinny legs can't support them. Cows required to produce enough milk for 10 calves tend to burn out quickly. Cows not subject to selective breeding can live up to 30 years without burning out. But prolific dairy cows tend to make it just 4 or 5 years before they are considered worthless, and then they are sent to be slaughtered. Selective breeding comes with both benefits and drawbacks. Think of all the joy that dogs have offered humans in the form of companionship over the last 100 years. Selective breeding is to thank for man's best friend, and yet the pain and suffering that livestock endure makes us think twice. It is important to keep in mind that in some cases, the negative consequences of selective breeding may outweigh the positive. Okay, so I like that article because it leads really well into our next topic, which is human impact, but we'll get to that soon. Okay, according to the text, what is artificial selection most often called? Natural selection, evolution, selective breeding, or desirable traits? Okay, I think if you were listening at all to that article, you should be able to answer that one, but if not, I would go up to the beginning of the article, the first paragraph. Okay, what does the text describe? Experts completed to analyze experiments. Oh my goodness! Experiments completed to analyze the differences and similarities between animals bred for certain traits and animals not bred for certain traits. So, did this article talk anything about experiments? Yes or no? If no, I would go ahead and cross it out as not an option. If yes, leave it open as a choice. B, the attitudes of different societies to selective breedings. So did this article concentrate on different societies' ideas of selective breeding or their opinions? If the whole article did not talk about that, then cross it out. If it did, leave it open as a choice. C, different examples of animals that have evolved through adaptation to their surroundings. So did this article talk about different types of animals that have evolved through adaptation to their surroundings? So just strictly adapting to their surroundings, and ones that didn't adapt died. If it didn't talk about that, cross it off. If you think it might have, leave it open. All right, D, did this article give different examples of selective breeding and the impact of selective breeding on animals? Okay. Remember, pause at any time in order to finish your answer. Oh, if you're doing the Google Doc, let me go back to that. you're going to put your answer here. Now, I will accept the letter. So if answer number 1, you could put A, B, C, D. So you can write your letter here. And then, see, it gives you number 2 right away. So then you go back. Number 2, what did you choose as your answer? Put it in there. All right, number 3. The text explains that selective breeding involves breeding animals or plants for specific desirable traits. For example, humans bred different types of dogs to accomplish certain jobs. Farmers bred chickens for having more meat and laying a greater amount of eggs. Cattle are often selective bred either for more meat or for more milk production. The text also notes that breeding animals for size and strength interferes with natural animal processes. Well, this explanation here gives you the answer to number 2, just FYI. Okay, so based on this information in the text, who benefits from the traits different animals are bred for? So who benefits from more eggs, more meat, jobs that dogs do, more milk, more meat? Who benefits from traits different animals? Humans breeding the animals, so humans benefit. The animals being bred, so the chicken benefits from being bigger or laying more eggs, or both humans and animals benefit, or animals not being bred by humans. So the animals like the wild chickens, does it benefit them that we're doing this? And go off of what this says right here. Who does this benefit? Okay, number 4. The author includes examples of broiler chickens whose legs can't support their bodies and dairy cows that burn out quickly. How do these examples support the author's statement that selective breeding comes with both benefits and drawbacks? Okay, so do these examples highlight benefits? Broiler chickens whose legs can't support their bodies and dairy cows that burn out quickly. So is that a benefit to have a dairy cow that burns out quickly and dies in 4 or 5 years when they can live 30? Or are these examples drawbacks, meaning negatives? So is it a negative that a dairy cow can die in 4 to 5 years when it should have lived for 30? Or are these examples both a benefit and a drawback? Or are these examples highlight the benefit of natural selection, which is nature choosing who survives? All right, number 5. What is this passage mostly about? Breeding for tameability in dogs, the history of selective breeding from Romans to today, the advantages and disadvantages of selective breeding, or the problems associated with selective breeding in industrial farms. So mostly about, that means majority of the whole thing is about one of these. Is majority of the article about taming dogs? Is majority of the article about this history from Romans all the way to today? Is majority of the article about advantages and disadvantages of selective breeding? Or is majority of the article about problems associated with selective breeding in just industrial farms? All right, number 6, read the following sentence. Even though people selectively breed to yield animals with desired traits, these are dangers to selective breeding. What does yield mean as used in this text? So to produce, to surrender, to endanger, not worth much money to remove. So I'd personally put these words in place of that word and see if the sentence means the same thing. So even though people selectively breed to yield animals with desired traits, is that to produce animals with desired traits, to surrender animals with desired traits, to endanger animals with desired traits, or to not worth much money to remove animals with desired traits? Okay, number 7, choose the answer that best completes the sentences below. Temple Grandin, an animal welfare advocate, notes that breeding animals for size and strength interferes with natural animal processes. Blank, breeding roosters for muscle can make them top-heavy and unsteady on their feet, interfering with their courtship dances. So, what should go in the blank? For example, breeding roosters. As a result, breeding roosters. Most importantly, breeding roosters, or in contrast, breeding roosters. So, how does this sentence relate to this? That's how you're going to figure that out. So this is giving you a definition, kind of. An animal notes that breeding animals for size and strength interferes with natural. So he's giving an opinion or a fact that size and strength interfere with an animal's natural body. So roosters that have these big muscles are top-heavy and unsteady on their feet. Does this support that? If so, it's an example. Is this an effect of this? Then it's a result. Is this just a something to note? Then it's most importantly. Or if it's the opposite of this, you would say in contrast. All right. 8, 9, and 10 is not multiple choice, so you have to write a sentence on your Google Doc or more. So give an example of a positive effect of selective breeding. I feel like if you were listening to the article or any of these questions, there was actually some examples in the questions too. So what's a positive, like what's a good thing of selective breeding? Give an example of a negative effect of selective breeding. There was a lot of examples here that we just talked about. So you should be easily able to give me one of those. All right, and number 10. How can the author's view of selective breeding best be described? So what do you think the author's view of selective breeding is? Do you think that the author is for it, against it, impartial? And use information from the text to support your opinion. Like, what did they say that made you think, oh yeah, they really don't like selective breeding, or they do think it's a good idea? So, all right. That's the end of day 17. Many of you are rocking these days, and some of you need to catch up. So I hope you are finding these videos useful. When you finish your Google Doc, remember to click share right here, and then you will put your teacher's email address here, and then click done. All right, have a good night.